Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced that Ukraine had reached a strategic turning point in the war with Russia.
Ми боремося за нашу свободу вже 16-й день.
We're fighting for our freedom on the 16th day. That's 4 times longer than the enemy had planned. But the Ukrainians are proud people who always defend their property and will not give the occupiers a piece of land or a single % of their freedom. Russia should be punished for shelling humanitarian corridors. If the war continues, further sanctions by Ukraine's allies will be necessary. It takes time and patience to win.
Свою землю і не віддадуть.
Satellite images show the rearrangement of the Russian convoy near Kiev, and Ukrainian media reported that this morning there were outbreaks in Cherkiv, Kharkiv, and Lutsk. Fighting continues near Kiev. At night, the Russians attacked Cherkiv, Kharkiv, the Sumy Oblast, and in the morning, the airports in the west, in Lutsk and Ivano-Frankivsk. The situation in Mariupol is dramatic. Last night, there was fighting in Irpin, Makarov, near Brodyanka, to the north and west of Kiev. The Russians also fired on civilian targets in the region. Further evacuation of people from the towns fighting near Kiev is planned. No electricity, no baby food, looted shops and pharmacies. The situation in besieged Mariupol is becoming more and more critical. It's estimated that there are still about 400,000 people there. We struggle with the lack of electricity, water, and gas. We have no heating. The residents are trying to get water by any means. City officials provide bottled water, but this only covers a fraction of what's needed. Many people do not have access to drinking water. All shops and pharmacies were looted long ago. There is a shortage of specialist products for children. People are looking for drugs. In particular, there is a lack of resources for people with diabetes and cancer. But you won't find them in the city. Hospitals are partially functioning because the city council supplies fuel for their generators. Ukrainian soldiers are repelling the offensive of Russian troops in all directions. According to the data of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, up to and including Thursday, the losses of the Russians include over 12,000 soldiers, 353 tanks, 58 launchers, 57 planes, 558 cars, 3 ships, and 60 tanks. The World Health Organization informed on its social media channels about the number of Russian attacks on medical facilities. As of today, the WHO has verified 26 attacks on the health service in Ukraine from February 24th to March 9th, including the maternity hospital in Mariupol. In total, 12 people died and 34 were injured. More incidents are being verified. The WHO strongly condemns these attacks. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, commented on the current situation in Ukraine and the mass migration of people. The number of refugees from Ukraine tragically has reached 2.5 million today. We also estimate that about 2 million people are displaced inside Ukraine, millions forced to leave their homes because of this senseless war. In turn, without presenting any credible evidence, the spokeswoman of the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Maria Zakharova, accused Ukraine of operating laboratories producing biological and chemical weapons in cooperation with the United States. White House spokesperson Jen Psaki denied the reports and warned that this could be part of Russia's provocation and a possible justification for Moscow's future use of this type of weapon of mass destruction against Ukraine. Although further reports have suggested, however, that the U.S. is in fact funding and operating these laboratories in Ukraine. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg stressed that the alliance would not engage in military operations in Ukraine.
Nuclear war can not be won and should never be fought. And this is something which actually Russia and NATO allies have assigned to many times. So therefore, we will not send NATO troops into Ukraine on the ground and not send NATO planes into the airspace of Ukraine, because that will most likely trigger a full-fledged war between Russia and NATO, causing much more damage and death than we see today. It'd be even worse than the conflict we see today.
During today's visit to Bucharest, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris confirmed America's full commitment to the security of all North Atlantic Alliance states.